Good morning, third grade. Today we're going to be learning more about fractions. You may want your fraction circle kit for some of what we do today. Our target for today is I can represent fractions using the fraction symbol. You know that a fraction is equal-sized parts of a whole. This circle is showing a fraction because the unit, the circle, is broken into two equal-sized parts. This rectangle is also showing a fraction because the unit, the rectangle, is broken into 8 equal-sized parts. This triangle is not showing a fraction because while it is broken into 2 parts, the 2 parts are not the same size or the same shape. It is not broken into equal-sized parts, so this is not a fraction. You know that a unit is the whole. It's the object that is divided into equal-sized parts. You've learned that the unit can change. When we're using our fraction circle kit, the unit can be the black circle, but it could also be any of the other pieces, like the yellow piece or the dark blue piece. You know that your unit can also be things in your real life, things like pizza that you're sharing with people or a chocolate bar. A unit fraction is what we call one of the equal-sized parts that a unit is divided into. When you look at this circle that's divided in 2 parts, you know that we call these parts halves. We would call one of these parts 1/2. So the unit fraction is 1/2. Each of the parts that this unit is broken into is 1/2 of the whole. This is 1/2. This is also 1/2. The unit fraction for this fraction is 1/2. Look at the rectangle now. We know that this unit is broken into 8 equal parts, and we call those parts eighths. We would call one of those parts 1/8. So the unit fraction for this unit is 1/8. This piece is 1/8, 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 and this piece is 1/8. All of the pieces are 1/8 of the whole. So we would say that the unit fraction is 1/8. Yesterday we learned about non-unit fractions. You know that non-unit fractions are more than one of the equal-sized parts that a unit is divided into. When you look at this circle, you can see that there are 4 equal parts. So the unit fraction, of course, would be 1/4. However, you'll also note that 2 of those 1/4 pieces are covered or selected. So this non-unit fraction would be 2/4 because there are 4 total parts of the unit and 2 of them are covered. This is also a non-unit fraction. This unit is divided into 8 equal parts, so we know the unit fraction is 1/8. Each part is 1/8 of the whole, but we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of those equal-sized parts are covered or selected. That tells us that this fraction would be 4/8 because there are 8 total pieces and 4 of those 1/8 pieces are selected. Non-unit fractions are more than one of the equal-sized parts that a unit is divided into. Today, third grade, we're going to be talking about a new way to represent fractions. But before we do that, we'd better talk about what we already know. We have learned to represent fractions in words. This fraction here is clearly 2/6. And when we would write that down, we would usually do it like this: a 2 for the part selected, and a dash, and then 6 for the total number of fractional parts. When we say and write the number of selected or shaded parts, when we say or write the name of a fraction, we start by saying or writing the number of selected or shaded, or shaded parts. There are 2 parts shaded in this fraction, so we say 2 first. Then we say or write the total number of fractional parts that the unit has been broken into. In this case, it's 6. Today, we're going to learn to represent numbers, or fractions, I should say, using the fraction symbol. Here's that same fraction, 2/6. The fraction symbol is a way of representing fractions using numbers. You can see it here. Fractions are usually represented this way in our real life. I bet at some point in your life you've seen a fraction that looks like this, with a number on top, a number on the bottom, and a bar in between them. In our real lives, we almost always see fractions represented this way. When we write the fraction symbol, the number of parts selected or shaded goes on top. You can see here that I've written my 2 for 2/6 on the top. This top number, third grade, or the number of selected or shaded parts, is called a numerator. Then when we write the fraction symbol, the total number of fractional parts in the unit goes on the bottom. Since this fraction is 2/6, the 6 for sixths goes on the bottom. We call that bottom number of a fraction the denominator. It represents the total number of parts that the unit is broken into. We separate the numerator on top, the number of shaded parts, and the denominator on the bottom, the total number of parts, using a horizontal line. So when we write our fraction symbol, the numerator, the number of parts shaded, goes on the top, and the denominator, the total number of equal fractional parts, goes on the bottom. Here you can see we have the fraction 3/4. There are 4 total parts, and 3 of them are selected or shaded green. So I would write this fraction using my fraction symbol, with the 3, the number of parts shaded on top, and 4ths, the number of fractional parts, on the bottom. But usually we would use numbers. 3, the number of shaded parts on top, the numerator, and 4ths, or represented by a 4, on the bottom, the denominator. This fraction shows 3/4. Here's another fraction. Let's start by just determining what this fraction is. What is the name of this fraction shown? This fraction is 1/6. So let's think. Let's start by writing it in words, which is more of what we're used to. How many parts are shaded? Oh yes, just one of the parts is shaded. And what is the total number of fractional parts? What is the name of the fractional parts? Oh yes, 6. So now let's take this 1/6 and write it in numbers, the normal way we use our fraction symbol. What number goes on the numerator? How many parts are shaded? Oh yes, our numerator is 1 because one of the parts is shaded. Now what number would we use for our denominator? What number will show the total number of fractional parts? Oh yes, our denominator is 6 because there are 6 total parts in the unit. So this fraction here is 1/6. Now, third grade, let's go ahead and take a look at some fractions together. We're going to start by actually thinking about our denominator, because our denominator is the total number of pieces. It's the number of fractional parts. How many total parts is this unit broken into? Oh yes, this unit is broken into 5 equal-sized parts. Now we're ready to think about the numerator, third grade. How many parts are selected or shaded? You're right, there are 3 shaded parts. So here's our fraction symbol. Our numerator is 3 and our denominator is 5. How would we say this fraction in words? Oh yes, we would say 3/5. This fraction is 3/5. Now let's take a look at another one. Here's our fraction. What is the denominator? How many total parts is the unit broken into? Oh yes, our denominator is 2. Now, what is our numerator? How many total parts are shaded or selected? Oh yes, 2 of the parts are shaded. So how would we say this fraction in words? We would say 2/2. Yes. Let's look at another one. I want you to go ahead and think. What would our denominator be? You're right, our denominator is 3. And what would our numerator be? Oh yes, our numerator is 0. There are no parts shaded or selected. So, how would we say this fraction in words? Oh yes, this is 0/3 because there are 3 total parts in the unit and 0 are selected. Now, third grade, I want you to look at this fraction and I want you to determine what the fraction symbol would look like on your own. I want you to think about the denominator and the numerator. Which fraction symbol represents this fraction? Oh yes, our denominator is clearly 2 because there are 2 equal parts, and our numerator is 1 because 1 is shaded. How would we say this fraction in words? How do we say this fraction? Oh yes, this fraction is 1/2. Let's look, third grade, at one more. Look at this fraction, third grade, and determine what fraction symbol would represent this. You're right. Our denominator is 8 because there are 8 total parts, and our numerator is 7 because 7 of the parts are selected. How would we say this fraction in words? You're right. This fraction is 7/8. 7/8 of the unit is selected. Thank you so much for learning about the fraction symbol with me today. I'll see you tomorrow, third grade.